I want to say, hey, thank you so much. There he is. Thank you so much for being part of the podcast, Outbound Selling. Hey, we're actually recording this in real time. For those of you listening to it later on, you'll know that Stu came out with a killer book. Hey, tell the audience a little bit about your book, would you?
Well, it's a crazy one. It's called How to Grow Your Business Like a Weed. We all know what it means to grow like a weed, but how do we apply that to our business? And you and I have had a couple of conversations this week. This was launch week, and you made me realize something about weeds and I was just listening to you and Larry about people prospecting or not prospecting, and about it being a muscle, and you made me realize that weed strategy really applies well to selling as well.
Oh, it applies to literally everything. I remember my mom would say, "Mark, you're growing like a weed." Little did I realize that years later, my good friend Stu would be using that for a book. But hey, congratulations. It's neat. So tell me.
I mean, it just makes sense, right? We know what it means to grow. Like, we've heard it all our lives. We've watched it. We're watching it right now, all around in our yards, everywhere. They're growing like crazy. And they've got some attributes and tools and strategies that we can apply to our businesses, but I think actually our careers and just selling.
Please don't tell me that. Please don't tell me that they're growing like a weed out there. I mean,
they are.
That just drives me crazy. Because
have you noticed that?
I have noticed that, and that's why I have people who come and take care of that for us. So, anyway, okay, I'm one of those people. I don't even own a lawnmower. Okay, as I'm listening to my neighbor mow his lawn right now. But hey, let's talk about outbound selling, outbound prospecting. Yeah. What does that mean to you?
Before I do that, I got to say hi to Bonnie. She just popped up on the
I
screen.
know. Bonnie just jumped. I know. Bonnie's been listening to all kinds of stuff I do. Great friend out just north of you.
Oh, really?
Kind of almost a ferry ride up, because she's out of British Columbia, Vancouver.
Oh, it's one of the prettiest cities in the world, I think.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Absolutely.
Well, so outbound, I have probably a different perspective on it, because I've specialized my whole career. I've specialized I've been using cartoons, right? I mean,
wait a minute. You are a cartoonist that goes to a next. Tell the audience, where have your cartoons appeared?
Well, a lot of campaigns, but also on the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, just name dropping Wall Street Journal, no problem.
Just Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, along with a few other very famous publications. So
But so I've always used. So the thing is, I haven't had a traditional. Well, maybe I have had a traditional sales role. I'll have to explain that. But I've never. I have had the word sales in my title in the past, but it was a long time ago, and then I became an entrepreneur, and I've been growing my business and growing different businesses and so on, and particularly helping others grow their businesses, and so when you own a business, it doesn't matter whether you have the word sales in your title or not. You're selling. You must sell, or you don't, or nothing happens. It's like the weed. I'm going back to the weed for a moment. Your weed doesn't get watered. Nothing happens.
That 6-month-old baby that's wailing their head off. What are they doing? They're selling, and they're not going to stop selling until they get what they need, get what they want. Right?
Yeah. So I've sort of done it as this is a function of my business existence, but I've never been a sales manager, for example. But I know that I have to get out, and I've got to keep a steady stream of contacts happening and sales coming, or the business doesn't last. And mine has lasted a long time. So, if you don't get out and sell, and you can also get really complacent about it. And I think maybe I don't know, maybe the pandemic changed things a little bit in terms of causing people not to reach out quite so much. I don't know, but we need to get back to it.
Did the pandemic force you to get more focused, more disciplined?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, what it did, like a weed, sometimes we're always disrupting as business people. We're always, and particularly as entrepreneurs, our goal is to disrupt. But one of them anyways, a big one, is to disrupt the market so that we're changing it. And but the weeds also know that we get disrupted all the time. They get disrupted all the time, and so they have mechanisms and attributes that pull them right on through that. And we need to do that too. So I was, that was while I was the pandemic was a great time to write a book.
Yeah, well, something you just hit through. Weeds really do a good job of prospecting because they put so many seeds out there.
That's exactly right.
If one or two of them die, no big deal. They've got so many seeds out. They keep a full pipeline. They're continuously prospecting.
Yes.
By putting more seeds out there. They don't know which ones will take hold. Some may land in concrete, but others may land in that crack, as you said. What was it? The 405? No.
Yeah, the Santa Monica Freeway, the 10.
The Santa Monica Freeway.
Yeah.
And in terms of, you see that weed growing, how can you do that in the middle of a 12-lane road? But it takes hold.
Yeah.
And the persistency of weeds to disrupt. And there's a word there that you said that I like that from a prospecting standpoint. Prospecting is disrupting. You have to disrupt.
That's true. You do.
Because if you don't disrupt, then all you are is an order taker.
Yeah, that you do. But what I liked is that you helped me see that seeds are also outbound, or just, it's cold calling. That is a big part of, and particularly in the context of your sales career, you've got to, just like a weed, you got to put out a lot of seeds. And look at how they do this. I mean, you mentioned that Santa Monica Freeway. I should explain that the origination story for writing How to Grow Your Business Like a Weed came from driving down the Santa Monica Freeway many years ago. And, as they're speeding along, there's 6 lanes of traffic going one way, 6 coming the other way, and maybe a 40-foot wide median in the middle. It's all concrete and rushing tires, and there's no place for a plant to live. I'm like, but growing out of a crack in the concrete, I noticed in the median, I noticed this dandelion. It was kind of bouncing around in the turbulence, but it looked happy. And it had those happy yellow flowers and those geodesic seed pods that blow the seed. Like we all, they're so fascinating. We blow them around as kids, much to our parents' horror, But that was just kind of bouncing around there, and it was just making its living out of the crack in the concrete, and it looked happy doing it. It looked like it was just purposeful, and it was just running its process.
It stayed focused. Focused.
It's
Their
incredible.
objective is to grow.
And you wonder, like, well, how did it get there? How did it pull that off? And of course, we know how it pulls it off. We see it all the time. They have those seeds that are highly mobile. They put out a lot of seeds. Dandelions put out an average of 15,000 seeds per plant over their 5 to 10 year lifespan. So that's a lot of seeds that they're putting out, and which is exactly what we need to do in sales and in business.
It is. And this is the whole premise around prospecting. When I hear people say, well, I picked up the phone, I called 5 people, nobody wants to buy from me. Well, did you even have conversations with those 5? That's a whole no. So they must not be interested. But simply, you didn't. Prospecting is about having breadth and depth. And we could sit here and argue back and forth which one is better. And I'll say it really depends on the industry.
You have to have both.
I mean, you have to do both, but the size of it's going to depend on the industry, what you're selling, purchase cycle, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the premise is you do have to have both. And that's what weeds do, because, when you do pull weeds, isn't it amazing how deep the roots go?
Well, I got to tell you, what's wonderful about weeds is they come in all shapes and sizes. So they've got all kinds of different strategic approaches to this. Some are, some do, they put roots way down. Dandelion's a good example. They put their roots pretty far down. There's some that put their roots down about 30 feet. Yeah. Not dandelions, but other weeds.
See, you didn't realize that when you turned into this podcast, you're listening to a podcast on horticulture. As we deal
Hopefully
with,
not.
No, obviously not. Yeah, but here's the whole thing, and this is what I find so fascinating about your book and what you do and the cartoons you do. You create visual pictures. You create emotional experiences by reaching out to different senses, which is something I think from a sales standpoint is something we have to do, because we have to be able to reach the customer using multiple senses. And the more we can visually craft a story, guess what? the more likely we are to engage them. And I think that's over the years, having gotten to know you well and seeing all the things you do, that's what you do. You help people craft a story.
I guess that's true. You're right. Cartooning is storytelling.
Yes.
I mean, it's just a really quick thing, but it's a story.
It is. It is. And of course, you're the champion of the single frame cartoon, which means
say I'm the champion.
Well, no, but I mean, I'm going to stop thinking about this for a moment, because you then have to tell that story in a single frame.
Yeah.
Now, think about this from a prospecting standpoint. You get a prospect on the phone. You don't have 3 hours to tell them.
Yeah.
You've got maybe a window of 3 seconds as to which they were going to make a decision to disconnect or stay engaged, maybe for another minute or two. That's it.
Yeah.
So that whole single frame concept is very much spot on there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That makes a lot of sense. It does. And you just have to. Oh, I like what Bonnie is saying about prospecting being a mindset, because
it is. I mean, that's a great
mindset
comment
too.
Yeah. And check this next one out. Eric says sales is 80% emotional, 20% logical. It is, because so many salespeople fail at prospecting because emotionally their head's not in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're so fixated on, the customers are going to want this. The customers are going to want this. And yet, if I go into prospecting with the whole idea, and I prospect a tremendous amount, it's about just having conversation. It's just, I recently just closed what will easily be the largest deal I've ever done.
Oh, nice.
And it just came out of one meeting that then turned to the next one, the next one, the next one, the next one, the next one. And you just kept going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And I mean, you stop and think about that for a moment. That's what prospecting is all about. It's again, I think people look at prospecting as, oh, wow, I got to close the deal on the first call. Unless you're selling pencils, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you have helped people in some very complex industries, some very complex.
Oh,
where
yeah.
where they have to go in at a very high level, and you talk about in your book, because you do those cartoons that you send out, and in fact, who are some of the famous people that you've been able to get meetings with because of your?
I mean, well, Rick, do you know Rick Dees, the radio?
Yes, I know Rick Dees.
So he's one. I sent him a cartoon a long time ago. So then I've been creating his cartoon Christmas cards. I don't even know how long, 30 years or something. Every year we get together and I don't even know if, Rick Dees is kind of a, he was the top DJ on the radio for a long, long time. He's amazing. He's still on the radio, but radio isn't quite as much of a force as it once was. But anyway, that one was kind of fun. I've reached presidents and prime ministers, and
because the card, and yet if you were to reach, and think about this, 99% of all people say, there's no way I can reach them. There's no way I can reach.
Yeah.
If you believed enough in what you could do, the message, the conversation you could have, and you had a strategy, and you were persistent in trying to reach them, and not trying, you did. I remember you shared with me one time, you were able to have a meeting with, what was it, T. Boone Pickens?
Oh, well, yeah, he was the second interview for the Weeds book.
Wow.
And I did that with a cartoon.
Yeah, and you got that with a cartoon.
But I don't mean to say, here's the thing. I don't mean to say you have to be a cartoonist to do this. And one of the things that I'm going to be talking about, so I'm going to be at OutBound. I'm going to be joining you.
I know, it's great.
This one as one of the speakers, and I'm so honored to get to contribute, really.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to be at the conference. I'm going to be talking about how to get meetings with from the other book, how to get a meeting with anyone. And the thing about that is, and about outbound selling, just about cold calling and so forth, is you've got to break through. You have to, in order to sell, you have to be able to get meetings. So that's what that whole that's what the book is about. That's what I'll be speaking about at the conference. And the thing is, here's what's really cool, Mark, is that I've used cartoons, and you would think, well, it's audacious, and it's kind of a crazy way to reach out, and if I can say this about something that I did, it's a clever and sort of it's a clever way to do it, creative way to do it. And a lot of people will say, oh my God, but I'm not a cartoonist. But what I found was when I researched the book, that, and I interviewed you and Dan Waldschmidt and Jeb and Mike Weinberg and lots, and like all the top sales leaders, and you all shared these amazing stories and tactics for getting through. And so it's not just about cartooning. It's what it is about is coming up with ways to humanize yourself to the other person and to show up in a way that I guess captures share of mind. They're like, who is this guy? Who is this woman? It depends on who's reaching out, but who is this? And man, I love the way they think. This is incredible. And when you do that, then it's not even a cold call. It's just, it's kind of a fun conversation.
What you said so much there. I'm going to encourage people to stop the podcast right there, back it up 30 seconds and listen to what Stu said, because you talk about the personal element, because prospecting is about including that personal element. And there could be BDRs, there could be SDRs who are watching this and they're saying, well, I have a script. I know you have a script, but you still have your personal intonation. You still have all the other ways that you do. And it is. But you also talked about it's got to be somehow unique, because it has to differentiate and stand out. Because you and I mean, we're like everyone else out there. We get tons of really bad prospecting emails every day.
True.
And we get tons of bad LinkedIn email messages and tons of things. Although it's funny, we've had several people already post comments how they would like a cartoon from you. So,
I didn't even see that. Oh,
well, I'll put them up there. I'll put them up there. Brandon was the first one to ask for one, and then look at that. He says, "Hey, would love to get a cartoon." Although
we've got to get Brandon a cartoon.
Although he puts a little smiley, and then of course Michelle jumps in and says, "Hey, I would too." Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Oh, you got one of the big boards. You got one.
I have one of the big boards, and if I had time, I would step over to the other side.
Yeah, we don't need to.
Get that big board.
You'll see one at OutBound.
Yes. Well, hey, that's a good reason to come to OutBound, right? But see, this is what's so powerful about you. You don't hesitate to find unique ways, and this is something that I encourage every sales. One of the things right now, we happen to be recording this on a Saturday morning, and there's a CRO that I do some work with and so forth. I've already emailed him this morning. Wow. I emailed him this morning with some information. Why? Because I know he's working this weekend. And you know what? He's going to respond back to me. I love reaching out. In fact, not just a CRO, but I also emailed a CEO of a company. The CEO has already responded to me. And these are people who just are really kind of on the peripheral of my radar screen. But I know that if I try to reach them during the week, it's going to fall on deaf ears.
Yeah,
but on a Saturday morning,
you were the person who taught me that I included it in How to Get a Meeting with Anyone from our interview, yours and my interview, that you reach out to someone early in the morning Saturday, because there's no assistant screening the emails. There's none of that, and so these CEOs and these really top prospects, they're just checking their own email. They're just checking it before they get into their weekend.
Right. And the key is not, hey, I'm not trying to sell you. I am selling you, but I'm sharing with you some insights. I'm sharing with you some ideas that you're going to find of interest. Because I always say people at the senior level, they're not working in the business on the weekend. They're working on their business. And so I want to share with them some content on that. It's why I also say Friday afternoons. People in fact, it was funny. I was doing a call this week with a sales team. And I was preaching to them Friday afternoons in the summer, excellent time to be making prospecting calls, rather than mowing your lawn or trying to pick dandelions out of your yard.
You don't do that. No, you have to do that. I just want to say something though about OutBound, because you and Jeb and Mike, Anthony and Areno, and I guess Victor is part of maybe the community too.
I mean, Mike has kind of stepped aside for a bit, and Victor.
Yeah, well, I hope he comes back. But But so I've been watching watching the story unfold, and last year was my first time at OutBound, and I gotta say that was an absolute blast. And it was kind of a miracle because it was the first event that was that had been held in the first live event that had been held in the World Congress Center in Atlanta.
Yeah.
That was the first one. You guys really pulled off a miracle. And, we had been locked down, and there we were hanging out, and it was like enhanced reality. It was amazing. I can't recommend this enough. When I went, and I just thought, okay, I'm coming every year now. That's it.
Yeah,
it's a great event. I really enjoyed it.
What made it so enjoyable for you?
People were excited to be there. They were really excited to be there, and but then you also have the top minds in selling there, and they're up on stage, and you learn from them. And I have this great mentoring story. I mean, I was mentored by some of the greatest cartoonists in the world. Just by accident, it just happened, and that mentorship meant a lot to me. It really changed my life. And OutBound is mentorship writ large. It's just huge. You sit in there and you're just immersed in it. And then the other kind of wonderful thing was you were on Zoom so much, and we were on Zoom exclusively. That's how we were talking to each other for like the past, I guess it was a year and a half by then, or something like that, or 2 years. So and it's so flat, because you can't just like, hey, Mark, and slap you on the shoulder and say, hey, look over there, look at that. There's the Georgia Aquarium. Isn't that amazing? Because all that's happening is you see my shirt wrinkling. It's like, getting together again just makes all kinds of sense, and it just adds to your mindset. You have a book behind you about A Mind for Sales, and that's about mindset, and the weeds also, oddly enough, have a mindset, and it's not sitting around smoking these.
It's that other weed. You're right. Hey, we got to wrap this show up, but okay, Stu, now you're going to be part of OutBound Conference, so I really need people to go to outboundconference.com, get registered, get signed up, because again, this is what this podcast is all about. It's bringing all the speakers onto the podcast to really get people to realize, wow, they got to be there, because and it's not just the content. I mean, content's fantastic, but it's the networking of people. But hey, if people want to if people want to network with you now, how do they do that? What's the best way to reach you?
Come to my website, come to my author site. I'd love to have you do that. You can join my lists. You can get first 2 chapters of the how to grow your business like a weed, for free. And there's cool t-shirts, weed t-shirts that are going to blow your mind there. And then also, of course, on LinkedIn. I mean, come and connect with me, because I owe a few people some cartoons.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, and your website is what?
It's StuHeincke.com. So it's my name, Stu, StuHeinecke.com.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hey, you've been listening to Stu Heincke talk about prospecting, talk about his new book, How to Grow Like a Weed. I love the title of that book. The more and more I love it. And we've been talking about OutBound Conference. I'm Mark Hunter, the Sales Hunter. We want to encourage you to jump out there right now, get registered, get signed up. And hey, subscribe to the podcast, because we are going to be posting interviews with every one of the presenters. Stu, thank you so much. Say goodbye to the audience.
Thank you so much. Don't forget to join us in September.
Great. Hey, I'm again Mark Hunter, the Sales Hunter, OutBound Conference. This is the OutBound Selling Podcast. We'll see you on the next episode. Great selling.